The button has been pushed.
Oh, I know when a button's been pushed, bro.
Oh, I pushed that button.
I pushed those fucking buttons, dog. So hello everybody. Welcome to the Living NLP podcast. My name is Morgan Lane Bannett.
I am Nicholas Rave.
And we are here to get NLP and hypnosis out of your head, into the world, and into other people's heads, and into their worlds, and the worlds of the people in their worlds, and into their heads, and then out of
You
their
were doing
heads,
so
back into the
good.
world.
I was like, damn, he's on point with this introduction, and then
It's happening right now. What are you talking about? I was doing great until you interrupted me. Yeah, we're here to just have fun talking about what we do. We're just two coaches who use these things in our professional lives and in our personal lives, and we shoot the poop about it once a week or so. And the way we do it is we share an anecdote from our life, usually our life or our coaching, some way we've used or contemplated NLP in our life that's been useful to ourselves or others. And then we have a quote from a thing that's NLP related or is just something interesting that has to do with thought and freedom of essence. And that is how we roll. Did I miss anything? Did I do it right, bro?
You did. That was perfect.
Yes, exactly.
That is Living NLP. So you want to get started? You go first?
Yeah, I guess I can go first. So anecdotes, I have an anecdote of this.
Tell me a story, my friend.
Well, good, because it is about stories. So much of the work I've been doing lately is metaphorical, as well as it's where metaphysical and metaphorical do all that stuff. And I'm gonna make it very I'm gonna have to rewrite this person's story so I don't just tell it. Yeah. This guy they were out camping, and this guy's family, they're very natural, outdoorsy people. And this guy was like 11, and as a joke, his family kind of ditched him in the woods, knowing full well that they were close, but they kind of wanted him to just jokingly experience being alone in the fucking woods.
Right.
And did. And this person is now 60. And, we've been doing so well with all our stuff, everything we've been doing up until now, that I'm like, so what else is going on? Anything other little things that kind of come up you want to like? And he's like, oh, well, my unconscious mind just presented me with this event, this traumatic event from when I was a kid, when I got basically a joke abandoned for like a half hour, and they came back and everybody was like, and this person didn't even talk to their parents for like 2 weeks afterwards because they were deeply pissed off. And I was like, well, first of all, that's understandable. Sorry that happened. Second, let's, based on all the good stuff we've done and all the, when you get the results, it just compounds the effects. And like, okay, you know how we've done everything else? Yeah, cool. Let's do it with this. Okay. Yeah. So frame done. Then, all right, let's go back and, let's go up and above it, because we're not going to go down into it right away, because obviously there's a very traumatized child there. And let's kind of approach them from a safe distance and get as close as you can without feeling it and all that amazing stuff. And then part of one of the bigger steps in my work, and essentially our work, is agency, giving agency back to the person, the entity that we're speaking of.
It's a really interesting point. Yeah.
And so I said, okay, now that we're there and you can you're seeing this person in the woods and all the ways they're feeling, all that stuff, and I'd like to ask you now, what would that 11-year-old like to have happen? And the person kind of went, and then I go, oh, but wait, it doesn't have to be real. And they go, oh, well, what I'd love to have happen is like a mountain lion and a bear come by, and then we start hanging out, and then they like, and I go, cool, off you go. And then, oh yeah, and then they hang out. Mountain lion and the bear come hang out, and then we were just having a good time, and they were taking me up in the thing and doing all this stuff. And then my family comes back, and I'm like, fuck you guys, because I got a mountain lion and a bear, and we're all hanging out. I was like, yeah. And so how does that feel? Just like, he's like, so much better. That's great. And then let's take that lesson learning, whatever it is, in addition to the positive learning that my family wasn't trying to hurt me. They thought they trusted me to survive that.
Right.
And, other than that making sense, what was really the key that sort of kicked it into healing mode wasn't like, what do they want to have happen instead? And then they started thinking about like, this, they go, oh, hang on, but it doesn't have to have anything to do with reality.
Yeah.
And they went, oh, well, what about this? At which point it just rewrote itself as a comic book or a movie of whatever they wanted, and totally like discharged it, which is kind of like the phobia model anyways. Okay, make it clown music and turn it backwards and upside down, whatever. Like, what way would you like this to be? But the real thing that freed them was making it not have to be anything that has to do with reality at all, which then of course healed their real problem, and then brought that all back to the present. And you know what I mean? So I thought that
is awesome.
A real interesting thing to give them agency, but also fantasy. Like, and as long as that works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, then you're cuckoo. But if it does work for you, then great.
Well, there's two quick points I'll say on that imaginary side of things. Is the first one is, it's not to say that anything you do in your imagination will fix it. Like if you just walk up to somebody and you're like, oh, you have a phobia of sharks. Well, imagine the sharks with hats on. Does that fix it? That you're fumbling in the dark like that. There's precision to the pretend that actually makes a difference. Right. And a lot of it has to do with the state that you put them in before you even get to any of it.
Right. And a lot of it has to do with not only giving the character in their story agency, giving them agency.
Right.
What do you want to have happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because when you go, oh, put hats on them, they're like, that's fucking stupid. But if you're like, well, what if you put those like wax red lips, or like, that's stupid. What if, like, what do you want those sharks to have that will let you let go of the thing?
Well, that's the presupposition is what imaginary change will be the one that will actually change it for you. It will change the meaning. It will change the emotional charge on it.
Right. Yeah.
So the other thing I love about this story is it's such a good example of trauma. So serendipitously, I suppose, this isn't the book I was going to reference in my quote, but been rereading this. Have you read Body Keeps the Score? It's so good. So there's two thoughts that popped into my head about this one. The thing about agency. One of the things that he mentions is in almost all cases where trauma goes unresolved, AKA post-traumatic stress disorder, you still have the trauma. In almost all cases where that happens, there is an element of helplessness. There's an element of, I can't do something to escape from this. Being prevented from running away is part of it. Like, obviously that shows up in ways like being held down or physically restrained, but it can also be feeling like you're torn between two options, like both bad options, and you can't make a decision. And that helplessness. So one of the things that he talks about is they have to get, he doesn't use the word agency, but they have to be able to complete what they wanted to do then. The thing that didn't get to finish, you have to help them finish
like a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what is your unresolved? I like that. Trauma is you being haunted by a ghost of your own past, right. And you have to finish your unresolved.
Your emotional unresolved business.
Yeah. Unfinished business. That's the phrase I was looking for. Okay, so the other one was the imaginary stuff, the imagination. So he tells a story in there. I don't know if you remember this, about 9/11. So he was in New York, and he had friends that lived in New York. And this one family, this kid was, he said, 1,500 feet away from the building, and he was in a kindergarten. And when they all saw the planes. His family was there to pick him up. Fortunately, everyone in his family was okay. And he ended up getting a chance to talk to this little 5-year-old the day after. So later in the day, on September 12th, the little kid shows him a picture that he drew that morning, September 12th, early in the morning. And he drew this picture, and it was the towers with a plane and a fireball and people jumping out of the building. Just let's stop there for a second and just think about a fucking 5-year-old having to have that in his world, like not the idea, the reality of that. So then he noticed that there's this big black hole, like a spot at the bottom of the tower. And he asked him, "What's that?" And he said, "It's a trampoline." And he said, "That's so that if this ever happens again, and he talked about how he was so astonished that a 5-year-old, because he grew up in a loving, supportive environment, because he had the agency of being able to run and escape, and then he got to a place of safety, that his own intuition, his own imagination at that time was able to come up with something that helped him feel better, that helped him to be like, okay, I can put this behind me." And that is exactly what's missing for people who are still holding on to that trauma. We do that. That's what we do, is give people permission to be able to let the emotion or the imagination come forward and run the show for a little bit, because like you always say, imaginary problems require imaginary solutions. So,
Yeah, man.
dude, good story. Fucking
Yeah.
A.
It kind of reminds me, I don't remember that like Lisa Simpson meme where she's standing there at a screen and people put like what she's saying up there. I said PTSD is just spicy nostalgia.
Spicy nostalgia. I like it.
All right, what do you
Good
got?
one, dude. Okay. My story's a little different. It was a good experience. It felt good. Part of why I'm bringing this one up is this is not something I used to be good at handling. I've handled it badly in the past, and I was like, okay, like this feels like a thing that used to be hard, and I'm like, I know what to do now. So I had this client who I've been working with for a month and a half, maybe, and we just now got to like the shit, right? So this person had an a level of trauma in their child. It's not a pissing contest, obviously. Trauma is in the eye of the beholder, right? Some people are traumatized from someone playing a practical joke on them and leaving them in the woods for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
This person used to get beaten in the legs with sticks until he bled, and told that he was evil, and that he was going to end up a drug addict living in the gutter. And he was brought in front of the classroom. He didn't grow up in America, thankfully. Thankfully, this doesn't happen quite so often here at this level of extreme. Brought up in front of the room and pointed at as an example to everyone else in the room about this is what will happen to you if you don't listen to your parents, and all of this because he was gay. His father was super religious and absolutely tortured him. So he's done amazingly well in his life, given this. And in many ways, he's aware of some of the superpowers that he's gained from this, but he's never been able to fully leave it behind. And one of the things that I find when you're working with deep trauma is that people who have a lot of trauma are really, and they've tried so many different things to try to get over it. They're very scared to get their hopes back up. And that often comes out. The metaphor that I have in my mind is I watched this really difficult to watch video of a mountain lion caught in a trap. It was on its foot, and these park rangers were there trying to set it free. But the mountain lion was so scared of them that it would lunge at them and pull on the chain. And it was almost ripping its own foot off. They had to throw a blanket over the thing and pin it to the ground to just pry the thing open and set it free. If you could just communicate to the animal, I'm trying to help you. Relax, relax. It's okay. But the problem with our deepest wounds is that to give someone to be vulnerable enough to give someone the ability to help you heal is to simultaneously be vulnerable enough to give them the opportunity to make it worse, to hurt you even worse, to push the thorn in instead of pull it out. So that often shows up with people who are deeply traumatized trying to heal it, lashing out at you. And this client has a track record of pushing his therapists away, of triggering them to the point where they will end up in a shouting match and then fire him as a client. And I actually was referred to this person from a colleague who was sort of like, I think you can help with this. And I can't. This is beyond my scope of practice. And I always go into these things saying, I don't know. I'll try. I'll see if I can help, but I'm not guaranteeing anything because I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So he reached that threshold where he started like getting hopeless. It wasn't so much lashing out personally, although there was a few moments where I can feel him testing me. That's what it is. It's like they're testing to see, is this really safe? Is it safe for me to open up? Is it safe for me to go to be this vulnerable, to open up at these levels? And it was like he would poke at things to see if he could get a rise out of me. Or there was almost this magnetic pull. And one of the biggest reframes that I offered him was, you really don't understand how powerful you are. You don't understand how good a hypnotist you are. You can hypnotize other people and suck them into your reality. The good news is you've never worked with me. The good news is I know your tricks. I know the ways that you do, because I used to run them and I've been around it. I've seen it enough. You're not going to suck me into this. And we had this conversation where it was like 45 minutes of him just venting. And it was not like the other sessions. The other sessions, he's been a kind of model student and shown up and been like, and this one, it just came out. And I was able to get to this place of, he was like, his other therapist that he'd had a fight with was commenting that, like, yes, you can get over this stuff. You just have to take responsibility. And he was like, do you know that? Have you ever worked with anybody like me? Have you ever dealt with something? Do you know that someone can heal? Or is it, do you just believe it? And getting into his model of the world, I said, I don't know. The truth is, man, I don't know. I don't know if you can. Maybe even if I had worked with 10,000, I haven't. Even if you had worked with 10,000 people, if I had, and I'd been successful with every one, maybe you're the exception. Maybe you're broken. Maybe you can't change or heal. The question is, what else are you going to do? Are you going to give up? Are you going to kill yourself? Are you going to keep working on it? I don't know if you can, but I do believe that you can. I also believe that not trying is not, that's a guaranteed fail. So at the end of this conversation, I'd gotten into his model of the world, and that was what all of the other people I think that he's ever worked with they were never willing or able to do, was go far enough into the darkness with him and be like, I'm not scared of this place. I'll go with you. Like, I can go into this building rapport is not just about matching and mirroring their physiology. It is about that. It's also about matching and mirroring their model of the world. And you have to sometimes be willing to go, well, what do you do? How long do you pace until they're willing to follow? And sometimes you have to go deep into it. It was a very validating experience when he texted me afterwards and was like, I have never felt more seen. I've never felt more like someone really is listening and not judging me and being real and honest. And that's one of my things is I'm never going to lie to you. I will tell you the truth. And the truth is, I don't think that he's broken at all. I think he's very hurt and wounded and scared. And I do absolutely believe that he can heal these things.
Nice.
It's good to have reference points, I think, for really extreme situations to be able to point to and be like, look, if this person can recover from this, you can do it. And that's one of the reasons I like reading books like this is they talk about examples of people that I would be like, I can't help. I like go work with somebody else. I'm not like, there's stories in that book that even that story about the kid, I was getting emotional when I was talking about that. Like I had to stop for a second because just thinking about a 5-year-old in that place, and thinking about his childhood too is, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And the reason that I think I'm able to do it is because I know that people need someone to believe that they can when no one else believes it, including they believe that they can. I think that's something you're really good at too. Like you do not buy people's bullshit and excuses.
Yeah. And getting better at the rapport end of being able to maintain rapport while going, shut the fuck up.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. Right. That doesn't work.
Yeah. I think you and I are a little bit like, I think I'm really good at that pacing part. And I think my weak spot is I don't lead as hard as I could. And I'm getting better at it. But for a long time in my career, I don't think I made use. Okay, there were people that were wide open and they're like, change me. And I'm like, let's just do this little thing. And like for you, I think you're like, all right, let's open the hood and let's get in there. And yeah,
it's really great. I mean, most people just want to. So Igor has a thing where you let him vent. Like even if like you meet someone for the first a client for the first time, and they've been to many people, and they're gonna just they have to take that first shit that goes.
Yes.
They emotionally need to know that this and this and this and okay and this and my dad and this and this and this and you hear it with sympathy, not empathy. You're like, oh yeah, okay, oh that's not, that sucks. I get it. Yeah, yeah, and this and then and this and then this and then this and then this and then they just sort of run out of steam and you go, is there anything else? and they go, no. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about changing that. You know what I mean? Like you hear it. You don't get sucked into, oh, you poor little baby. Oh my God. Yeah. And you respect it and you get it out. And when they've said the thing, like if they start to repeat themselves, now you're just ranting. Yeah. Now you're just complaining. But if you have a thing that you like, the number one thing that's, I need this to be heard. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Is there anything else? Great. All right. Well, now that the dump has been taken, let's do some exercise. You know what I mean? But I couldn't go for this marathon run with this giant diarrhea,
backed up turd
inside me. So that's a big part. It's just letting people be heard without letting people dump on you. But just to go, oh yeah. I mean, to whatever extent they need to go, and then to actually say to them, anything else? It almost not that it belittles it, but it lets them know that you're like, okay, cool. I've heard, like you haven't, you haven't broken my heart. You haven't made me think less of you. It's okay. These are the facts. Okay, cool. Anything else? Yeah. Like what? I'm picking up some stuff from the store. Do you want anything? Oh, anything else? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
It's amazing how validating that question is for people. And it has somewhat to do with how you say it.
of course,
Mine
yeah.
is what else is I ask that, but
Right.
you can be like, what else? Like you could say, is there
Right, right.
anything else? You can say it in the wrong way, but if you genuinely say it like you're saying, like it's a grocery list, like, or even like a little, like for me, sometimes there's softness, like what else? And it's almost like I know there's more. Come on. And that encouragement to be like, you think you're done, but I'm not finished. I'm not done. Come
Right.
on, give
Right.
me more. And then when
Right.
they really get to the point where like that's it, like what do I do? Now there's an
Right.
opening.
They're like
You know?
exhausted. You're you know, yeah, you've let them do the thing they needed to do, and now we can get to the thing that I need to do.
Yeah. You said sympathy versus empathy. I think that's a huge distinction too. Like for me, I use the word compassion as a label, but sympathy, I think that's what you're pointing to. It's like, I don't need to feel bad because you're feeling bad. And I still care. Like
Right.
I care. I want good for you. And it does, it is sad that that happened. And I do have compassion for it. And it doesn't help me to save someone from drowning if while I'm watching them drowning, I feel like I'm drowning.
Right. It's empathy uh victimizes, or is it and sympathy no, sympathy victimizes and empathy appreciates, kind of thing. Like, oh, like, oh, you poor baby, oh, you poor baby, oh, you poor little thing, how
Oh,
could,
you're
oh.
saying empathy is the
Oh
good
wait,
one.
so no, no, so empathy, whichever one doesn't make me like you, right? Yeah,
Empathy
empathy is I
is
feel
I
what you
feel
feel.
what you
Right,
feel.
right. So that one
Yeah,
typically is the victimizer, like, oh
right.
gosh, oh, you
Yeah,
poor thing,
exactly.
oh my God. So that's more the victimizer.
Yeah,
Makes the sympathy is more of the appreciator, like, oh, oh yeah, wow, how did you make it through that?
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing what you must have been able to however, you know, how did you cope with that?
yeah.
You know, as opposed to like, oh gosh, yeah, you are fucked up, huh? Poor
Hmm.
little thing. Because that doesn't really help them get out. It helps you get in.
One of the ways that I get in their model of the world too is I will often, like, I think of it as taking it further than they took it. And like it's a polarity response. I want to go even further
Right.
into their, and the
Well,
way I
that's
often
the
do that
classic.
is, oh,
That's sorry. That's the classic. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how shitty is your life? Right. Say anything like
yeah,
this.
8.
Why not more?
Yeah. Let me point out other things that you're failing at.
Well, no, but why didn't you say 9 or 10?
Hmm. Well, because I guess there's some good things.
Boom. And that's like, huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
shit.
So you're immediately focusing them. Yeah.
That goes, well, yeah, well, wait, why didn't you say, well, if it's 10, well, cool, why didn't you say 12? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you know, like it just gets them to go, huh?
Yeah.
What? I think Snyder, I picked that up off of Snyder, but it's been around from a lot of places.
Yeah.
Like, you know, scale from 1 to 10, what's the thing? And if they're going to say a thing, you go, oh, okay, cool. Why not more? And then they're
Yeah.
not expecting that, first of
Yeah.
all. And then they actually have to go, well, because not everything's shitty. Oh, interesting that you can, with one question, you can get them to flip sides and justify it.
Yeah. One of the ways that I do that is when people explain what happened to them, I will extrapolate some of the ways that I can intuit from what they're how they've described it, that that kind of thing would make their life difficult, and I'll pile on more things. So they'll be like, this happened to me and it's fucked me up in this way, this way, this way, and this way. And I'll be like, wow, yeah, wow. When I imagine that, I imagine it also would have made this difficult too. And this. And what about this? Has this been hard for you too? And part of what that does is it pushes them even further, but it's me going in there. And instead of saying, well, no, I mean, it's not that bad, which is the wrong direction, or trying to reframe them immediately, I'm going to go into it and be like, yeah, it's worse than you think for a little bit, to just get that part and then switch them back over to, okay, now what are we going to do about it?
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Quotes.
Yeah. So actually, my quote's more of a
Well,
book report.
it's me first. Or no,
Oh,
did you do the story first?
I think so.
You did do the story first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Whatever. You can go. Okay. You
I
amped
guess
up
it doesn't matter.
amped up on your quote. You want to jump in?
Sure. The quote that I had is from a podcast. It wasn't from a book. At least I don't think it's from. The person who said it was referencing it as a quote, but he didn't say that it came from anywhere in particular. And it was, "We are born knowing that life is a magical adventure, and it takes them years to brainwash us to think otherwise." I don't know how profound I find that quote, but I find that it is a paradigm shift that happened with me when I started to really believe that we all have a memory of a time when life was magical. And we all had a vision of the future. Maybe all is the wrong word. Yeah, I think some people certainly have shitty trauma happening to them since the day they were born. And maybe they grow up way faster, quote unquote, grow up. But there comes a certain point for all of us, I think, almost everybody, where you leave the childhood magic behind and it's beaten out of you by life and the world and culture and religion and your parents, their trauma being passed on to you. Whatever it is, there's a point when the light goes out, or at least dims significantly, and you put your feet on the ground, get your head out of the clouds. And I more and more have really begun to believe that the process of healing your trauma is waking that up again, and not necessarily going back to a childish worldview, but it's almost like bringing that magic forward and finding a place where practical rationality can live. I wouldn't even say side by side, but in a sense, almost underneath it, that the magic is bigger than that to me. That if you don't have magic and beauty and adventure and purpose, meaning lives in that world. Nothing means anything if you don't have magic. All meaning is imaginary, so you have to make it up at some point for things to be meaningful. Otherwise, it's flat and gray and I don't know, fucking life. The life that most people think life is. I posted something recently about hopelessness, and everybody who commented on it, who talked about their hopelessness, it was so much influenced. But here's your segue. It was so much influenced by the fucking news, like by this obsession with politics, that this insane unhealthy addiction that people have to the suffering in the rest of the world, and looking at all this negativity. It has hijacked our brains. It has hijacked the culture and the world. And you wake up by going into a dream, like this is a nightmare. And I don't think waking up to reality is really possible. I think if anybody teaches us anything, we're always living in a trance. The question is, do you like the trance you're living in? Is it working? Is it creating the life you want? And if you're fucking stressed out and miserable and worried all the time, you're drinking some Kool-Aid. You have been brainwashed. We have all been brainwashed. But Morgan and I think, agree the brainwashing that happens in culture is more like people dumping shit all over your brain. You need to be brainwashed. You need your brain to get washed.
Yeah. Well, as Terrence McKenna famously said, culture is not your friend.
Oh, culture is not your friend.
Because it does do a lot of squashing. So you read that quote again for me.
We are born knowing that life is a magical adventure, and it takes them years to brainwash us to think otherwise.
Okay, so that's sweet, but it's not true. Like,
Yeah.
we're not born knowing much of anything other than titty and no like pain
Mm-hmm.
and sleep. I don't think we're born knowing that life is a magical adventure. I think that that's also a good thing, that it can be taught to a monkey brain. Monkey brains don't know about magic. I mean, monkey brains are magic if we want to frame it as that, but they don't know they're magic. You know what I mean? Like, so I think if you're talking about when we're children and we're taught about, imagination and fantasy and all this stuff is great. And then there's the whole, I put down childish things and grew up kind of a thing. That I think is more along the lines that you're talking about, is when people think they have to grow up. And that means stop imagining things, although they're going to continue to imagine fear in the future and pain and suffering and all what's going to happen to me if I fail. They're still doing it. Yeah. They're still doing the magic. They never stop doing the magic of imagining things, imaginary things. But I don't think we're born knowing the things are like, I think that's a very sweet thing to say, but if you raise the kid in isolation, they're gonna be like, I know life is magic. You know what I mean? But I think it's nice of them saying, like, we're a clean slate, hopefully, if we haven't been crack babies or all these other awful things that happen. We're a clean slate that it's free to imagine and use our power. Like, we know the power of imagination to heal, and also the power of imagination to make things way better. Like we've been talking about this whole time. But I don't know that we're born knowing that life is a magic adventure. I think that's a beautiful thing to teach somebody and to help them know, and then not forget.
Well, it's obviously a Milton model pattern. It's more poetic than it is literal.
Right. So other than that, I think, yes, I think life can be a magical, wonderful journey. And some people forget that and they get stuck in the news. And then they imagine everybody's doing other terrible stuff. And then they grow up kind of like, I was trying to think of like a movie where the kids had to grow up, and that was like Step Brothers popped into my head, where they were like just so innocent and stupid. And then they grew up and the parents were like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean this. I didn't mean this for you. Like, that time when innocence is lost, or, you realize the life.
Yeah. I think you make a good point about monkey brain. So there may be a case to be made that the kind of magical adventure that's being alluded to in that quote is only possible with language. That in order to have that imagination that builds this thing, that I guess the truth that I feel like it's pointing to is that the natural inclination of children is, if your spirit hasn't been crushed as an infant, that you are going to imagine yourself as an astronaut, and all of that is born from like a hunger and a curiosity and a lust for adventure. And that's what I think is when we say you're born knowing it. I get that that monkeys don't have that, and animals in general, they don't have that. They don't have ambition. They don't have the desire to quest and go seek for something. They have eat, sleep, fuck, shit. That's survive. That's it. So I'll grant you, born like infants may not have that as much, but I think the truth that I'm pointing to is that is natural. The magical adventure thing is natural, and culture not being your friend beats it the fuck out of you.
So that's, we're born with a wide open imagination.
There we go.
So people say, nope, it's this God and these holidays and this football team.
There we go.
Whatever. This is reality. The rest of it's not. I don't care if you think you're fucking whatever. Shut up and grow up. This is the way it is.
Yes.
So I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think we both help people get in touch with the imaginarium inside them. And I like the distinction of, like, I'm this way personally. I am childlike, but not childish.
Childish, yeah. Look, if there's anywhere that we could be pedantically semantic, it would be in a podcast about NLP. Like,
semantically pedantic.
Semantically pedantic.
For being
sure.
pedantically semantic about it.
Yeah. So to break it down and be like, listen, okay, what is this really saying? I like that. I enjoy you calling out the ambiguity of certain quotes.
Well, it's nice, but it's like, well, let's be real. We can definitely instill that in children. They're born receptive to that. And, we all have the skills that, we don't teach any people to do anything that kids don't already do. That's, you want to
as far as
things,
NLP, you mean?
model kids, that's like, they know how to play. They know how to turn this into a sword or whatever.
Yep. I just had that conversation with a client last night about the discomfort that so many adults feel about doing things that they aren't good at yet. And how I have a 2-year-old living in my house. And when you show him how this thing fits in this thing, he will take it from you. And if you try to do it, he's screwing it up. And if you try to do it for him, he's like, no, I want to do it. And he wants to be in that place where he doesn't know what he's doing, because everywhere is that place for him. But then at some point we get our spirits crushed, the innocence lost, and then we're like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to try it. It actually feels painful and uncomfortable for people to be in places where they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah, I think it's how you stay young.
Yeah, and as far as your quote about your thing about hopelessness, I was going to write this on there, but I didn't want to fuck with anybody. My favorite one was, no, I don't struggle with hopelessness. I'm great at it, which was amazing. But then I wanted to say that I had hopelessnesslessness.
I had hopelessnesslessness.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Dude, you should have put that.
I didn't want to upset anybody who's actually hopeless.
But
yeah, hopelessnesslessness.
That is a tough one.
Hopelessnesslessness.
It's fun to say, though.
Yes, it's fun to mean.
All right, so I tried to set you up for an easy segue.
Well, speaking of hopelessnesslessness, or a hopelessness,
and the news,
hopelessnesslessness, 1984.
Have you been reading it?
I finished it a while ago, and I hadn't read it before.
Oh, really? And I assumed this is one you've read a long time ago.
No. I've been avoiding it for every reason that I knew that I now know was why. But it was just the perfect time, a couple of weeks before whatever, and everything's this and that. And I knew what it was. I had some idea what it's going to be. Oh, but would you pull up whatever quote you like to say about holding two thoughts in your mind? You know that one? You've mentioned that before, right?
The paradox?
Yeah.
I don't have. That's a me quote.
Is what?
It would be something. That I don't know what the exact quote is, but I can explain the point quickly.
Okay, because I've heard you say
point.
Before.
Yeah, the point is that much of psychological, emotional, and spiritual development boils down to being able to resolve paradox in your mind. And resolving paradox is the ability to hold two seemingly contradictory truths in your mind at the same time.
Right. So yes. So that is doublethink. That is Orwell's definition of doublethink: the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them as right. But so anyways, I'll get back to that, because oh my god, what a fucking nightmare. It was well written. But what's fucked up is that we're living in it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're there.
Yeah, it was that the book predicted the future.
Technocratic elite, censorship, primarily coming from the left nowadays. Big tech coming from the left nowadays. But just like right think, wrong think.
Right.
Double speak.
Yeah.
Being unpersoned. That's straight out of it. He says it.
Oh, yeah.
Unpersoned.
You don't count anymore. Right.
You just get erased.
Yeah.
You fucking get erased. The memory hole.
I don't remember that.
You know what being memory holed is?
No.
Memory hole is like, down the memory hole. You don't remember what happened. What happened to the Vegas shooter? I don't know. Fucking gone. Just.
Oh, wow.
Gone. It's just down the memory hole. People say, like, all of those things came from that. and then worshiping the state, not thinking, just doing as you're told. Cameras everywhere.
Worshiping the state, man.
TVs that watch you. Everybody's being listened to. You can't do any of this and that. You're not allowed to think or have emotions or feelings. So the setup was sketch. And so doublethink was, the way that the people, because they basically controlled information. That was what they did. And anything was true. Any given day, something that was false yesterday could be true today and false the next day. Didn't matter. It's just whatever they said it was, because they controlled the present, which meant they controlled the past, and whoever controls the past controls the future. Yeah. All information was relative now because it's whatever they said it was. And like, that's where we're living now with Google and search engines. Oh, no, this is the one answer, not the rest of this is the answer, kind of a thing. And it was horrifying that this guy predicted so much stuff. So many things, like war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is freedom. Or you're just like, oh my God, we're living in this right now. We're living in this right now. And like, poor Orwell, he just wrote a book, but now everything that's totally evil is Orwellian. And he's like, poor guy.
Good point.
He's the guy who just satirized the whole thing, but now it's like Orwellian. It's like, fuck, dude, it sucks. And so doublethink was how the people who were in control could know that something was false, but also believe it to be true. And like that they had to hold those in their mind, but they did it in the wrong way. They took paradox and used it to justify their own lying, the believing the lies that they tell people.
Right.
And it was very, very dark and disturbing. It was like, I like dark satire, funny, dark, but funny, like smart, but like comes from a point with a little bit of an edge. This was just straight up dark fucking nightmare. When's the last time you read it?
Early 20s, late teens, maybe. Yeah.
Most people who read it when they were younger didn't get it. Like, read it again. It's like, or don't read it again, because it's fucking horrifying, incredibly depressing. And it's one of those stories, like, I knew all the twists. I knew where it was going. I'm like, oh, okay, that's obviously he's the bad guy. They're in love, which means they're going to end up being totally destroyed. And and he'll get captured. And then the last third of the book, do you remember that?
Remind me.
Is him, the protagonist, being physically and psychologically tortured. To death. While all of his beliefs are destroyed, everything he is destroyed. Every bit of love he has is destroyed, and he's made to not even be himself anymore. The last thing that they want him to do is fall in love with Big Brother, to love the person who's about to shoot you in the back of the head. And that's the last third of the book is this guy getting tortured. And I'm just like, I don't know, which is personally my nightmare. Basically, the government coming and torturing you into losing yourself. That's in room 101, which is where your greatest fear happens. So that's really all. I mean, that's my biggest fear is that the government will come, take me, and torture me, and make me hate everything I love, and make me not even know who I am. And like, yick. Yeah. And then he's dead. And I was just like, oh my God, that was so fucking depressing. And I cannot believe they would make high school kids read this. It was one of the, like, I mean, this guy's like being psychologically tortured, physically beaten, and like all that stuff. And then psychologically tortured. What is the point of having someone in high school read this? I don't understand.
Well, I read it voluntarily.
Right, but kids, I mean, it's a banned book now, which says a lot about stuff, because it's like it's a little too true. But it was
how ironic is that? You're banning the book, talking about banning books. Like,
so it was a hard read, and like it was everything I knew it was going to be, and then some, because we are so in it.
So what's the difference between good and bad paradox? Because this is something that I know to be a profoundly valuable tool. And when you point out that there is another way for you to try to convince people that two things that contradict each other are both true, that's not healthy.
Do you think, I mean, did George W. Bush really think that we were going to liberate the Iraqis?
Right.
Did he really think that? Or did he just make a case for it? It could be, like it cuts both ways, right?
Yeah.
Life is magic, and it's also a fucking pointless mess.
Yeah,
equally true.
those are the paradoxes that I find to be
Equally
extremely
true.
helpful.
Equally true.
Yeah.
But also fucking I'm choosing one.
Yeah.
In the book, they go, oh, these are equally true, and I'm choosing to lie to control you and whatever. You know, like I think there's paradox, and then there's like choosing your path in a world of where everything there's no meaning. There's no like magic, but the magic you give it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
I find that the paradox thing is actually something I think about a lot in terms of the right-left dichotomy in our country and most politics everywhere, is that the problem is that when you get stuck on one side, you can't, and especially when you what straw man your opposite side, like you only look at the most ridiculous morons and extreme on the opposite side, and you don't look at the people who are like, wait a minute, I have a fucking point here. And so maybe the trick is parts integration. Is it's not the solution is not the middle. I don't like that. It's not I'll compromise and you compromise and we'll meet in the middle. It's the top of a triangle. It's we want to take everything good here and everything good here and then bring it up here and make something new, which will then become the bottom of another triangle.
But that's still in the upper middle. It's the middle, but it's the upper middle.
So are we talking about a diamond then? And then what the Orwellian version is this? It's like the worst and the worst down here?
Well, I think the worst and the worst is when the fucking triangle.
Oh yeah, it continues to go wider
to infinity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that whenever you are seeing your opponents and your opposite side as morons and caricatures.
Well, dude, I've had so many. I've had one with a client, one with my mom, where they're like, it's along the lines of Trump is a neo-Nazi, or anyone who likes Trump is a racist Nazi.
Right.
And I'm like, no, they're not.
Right.
And they're like, what? I go, no, just because you disagree with them, that's where everyone's losing. That's where the left is losing their footing in reality.
Yeah.
That anyone who disagrees with me is Hitler. And you're like, what?
Wait,
come back.
Hold on.
Come back and grow up. That's where you need to grow up and realize other people hold different opinions to you. And nobody wants anybody to get hurt. Nobody wants the fucking Nazis running down the street with fucking, that's not going to happen. Don't worry. But like to think that anyone who disagrees with you about, like, far be it for me to take the side of the conservative Christians.
Dude.
But if you want to be a conservative Christian, go right a fucking ahead. Keep it out of the government, which they seem to be unable to do. But keep it out of the government. I don't give a fuck. But apparently, if you're a conservative Christian, you might as well be Hitler. Because to some people who are like,
again, that's a perfect example of like, I grew up extremely religious and Christian, and among other things, to say the word Christian means about as many like how many Christians are there? 1 billion on the planet. So there's about 1 billion different ways that can show up, and some of them are really beautiful. I still think you're probably believing in some fairy tales, but if those fairy tales make you
fantasy, great.
Yeah. If those fairy tales make you go out and make the world a better place, please keep believing them
and keep it out of the government.
Yeah. And then there's, but to characterize all of anything. I mean, again, we come back to the NLP, like, be careful with generalizations. Like all generalizations are bad, including this one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And all Trump supporters are Hitler. And like, I'm pretty sure they're not. I'm pretty sure they're not Nazis. I'm pretty sure whatever. And they probably think the same way about you, or you're all libtard, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, trying to, because I definitely know 90% more blues than reds.
Yeah.
And many of them, including my mom and other people, I'm like, whose words are you saying? Those are Richard Maddow's words.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're saying MSNBCBs, and then those are their words. You're just like, literally, well, you don't know this and that. I'm like, whoa. Like, do you know what you think about this? Have you looked at the other side? Have you or are you just regurgitating shit? Which is, again, the whole Orwellian thing, back to what you were saying about the media controlling the mind and telling you what's true and what's not true. And then there's like Twitter's deciding that no, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, we're getting political, but like Joe Biden had a thing, some kind of scandal with the laptop, whatever, right? But the media and Twitter and everybody squashed that. They refused to even look at it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
yeah, and when people on the right are like, look at how the
somebody sneezes about Trump is a this and that, and here's his tax returns, and here's some things, and release tapes of Melania or whatever. They're like, here, check this out, look at this. But when it's this, we can't say like that is information control. That is Big Brother. That is election tampering. That is fucking mind control. That's all these things when they're like, no, we don't like Trump. So and I'll say it right now, I'm not voting for him. But the reason that I hope that the blue team loses is because they are censoring information. That's where they lost me. They lost me when you guys took over the internet and the Facebook and the this and the news and decided you are the arbiters of truth.
You don't think the right would wants to do that too in their own way?
I'm sure they would and have.
Yeah.
But the internet has changed. YouTube has changed. I don't do Twitter has changed. Facebook has changed. The news has changed. Think like the media.
But you make a point though that if blue loses, like political blue loses, that isn't going to change the direction. If anything, that's going to further radicalize the technology.
But here's the thing: like you lost me at censorship. You lost me when your argument was rather than to, how hard is it to make Donald Trump not look good? I mean, how hard is it to just go to put up a couple people who have a brain in their head and can go, this guy's bad, right?
Right.
Can we agree that he's bad and we'll just kind of figure out another way? Rather than censor the internet. Yeah. Rather than clamp down on information. When you have to do that, you've lost the argument. You don't have an argument. You know what I mean? You can't, you need to censor to beat Donald Trump? Yeah. That guy's a fucking tool bag.
The most visceral example I have of this reality of wrong think and the idea that you have to all be thinking the right thing and you're not allowed to say certain things is right now in this conversation, I am uncomfortable because I don't want to talk about politics because I don't want to fucking deal with. No, I'm not saying I'm not going to, but no. I want to have the conversation but I'm saying like I can feel the part of my brain that's like, am I going to say something? Is he going to say something that's going to make me?
You're not afraid that Team Red is going to come after you.
No, not in the same way. No.
That's my point, and that's why I'm like, well, that you lost me there. Like, they're all idiots. Yeah. Only one of them is telling me what I can and can't say.
Yeah, I'm deeply afraid that Team Red will make gay marriage illegal and drugs all punishable by death and abortions illegal and take away freedoms that I saw as progress. But like the reason why the left keeps pushing more and more people to the right that they don't understand and don't see. I mean, the demonization of everybody who doesn't believe like me is a Nazi racist is one part of it. That thing about like when you censor information, when you are controlling the narrative in the way that they are, so obviously it is not difficult for people to go, like you use the Biden example, but fucking Clinton, like, man, I listened to a podcast recently with the interview of one of the women who has accused him of violently raping her.
I mean, the guy who said bold-faced to America, I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah. And then she talks about how, and like incredibly credible information here, and she's one of many. But she talks about how she was confronted and physically, not assault is the wrong word, but like she was grabbed by Hillary and threatened. And this is the woman who then later on was like, oh, me too. I stand with her. Fuck you. Right. Like, what the fuck?
So, but they're like, both sides are sleaze. And I think that's partially why an ass hat, like, you know, who is in, because people just didn't want her. And then they came up with Biden, who was just as close to her as they could get. And then like, you're not helping.
No,
it's almost like the DNC is trying to lose because they're not, they haven't reached out. They haven't done anything to like reach out other than go, you're fucking Hitler, racist.
Yeah. Even the fact that we are having this conversation, to me, is so indicative of the disease, the mental illness that has taken this country. Is like, I don't want to talk about politics. Like,
Yeah.
I don't,
Well,
like, I don't
But
want to talk about it with
it's a
you or
great
with anybody. I want
metaphor.
to talk about changing people's lives and
It's a
going
great
on
metaphor for
adventures.
people being in their own little bubbles and then like pushing, going farther off into their. And again, did you check out The Social Dilemma?
Yeah. Yeah.
Echo
It was good.
chambers.
It was good. It was just like nothing I didn't already know.
I know you knew, but it's like, but the echo chamber effect, where I
Yes.
only know my information, which and Robert Anton Wilson was like, I read newspapers.
How long ago was Robert Anton Wilson
He's
saying,
like,
go and get newspapers for the opposite
people
side?
I disagree with. I learn all these things. Like, oh, there's a little bit of something there, a little something there. Oh, that guy's a fucking idiot, but he's got a point over there. And oh, you got a point over there. That's lost. And I think the NLP-ness of the world needs to come to the top middle.
Yeah.
And dude, like 1984, holy shit.
Well, can we leave this on a positive note here?
Thrilling.
The thing that gives me hope is the individual, not the collective, the individual. The fact that I think that in the same way that when you look at the radical right and you only characterize, it's very easy to hear the loudest and the dumbest on both sides, on the left too.
Especially when he's president.
On the left too, that like the people who complain the most are the people I disagree with the most generally. But I genuinely believe that the majority of people are actually not those people. That it's, I don't know, let's say 60%. There's 20% over here and 20% over here. And there's 60% of people who are trying to wake the fuck up from this.
I certainly hope so.
And are going like, no, like I wanted Andrew Yang or somebody like that. Like there are better fucking options, or maybe we need to start from ground zero and find something completely new.
Yeah,
like,
which I get with the anarchist people. Like this system.
That's
totally
that's
broken.
a lot of what I've been listening to is a lot of people talking about anarchy.
Right. I mean, the system is broken and it's not set up for our betterment. But things like we've been talking about, people like us. Not necessarily us.
People like you listening in.
Yeah, exactly.
You NLP folks, if you're interested in this kind of thing, I already know you're a weirdo. Like you're not looking at the world in the same way.
Right, but again,
the rest of these. We're not talking about you. We're talking about, but clean your brain, folks. Like be careful.
Do it while it's legal.
to have your own thoughts. Yeah, well
that's the whole like do it while enjoy it while it's legal, because we are witches, we are warlocks, we are fucking shaman, we are freedom fighters, and in the cause of hopelessnesslessness. So
God damn it. And we're done. That was it. That was the moment. We are freedom fighters in the cause of hopelessnesslessness. Oh, thank you, Morgan.
Oh, wait, I hear the police knocking on my door.
Okay. All right, folks. We're going to wrap this one up. Peace, love, and NLP. We'll see you next week.
Later.
Bye.